This episode of The Answer is Yes Baja Sessions is brought to you by Baja Bound Insurance Services. Driving to Mexico? You can buy and print out your Mexican auto insurance policy online in minutes with their easy-to-use website. They also have great travel information to help you plan your trip south of the border. Visit bajabound.com.
Hello, this is Ryan Thomas, and you're listening to the Baja Sessions. Over the last 3 decades, I've lived, worked, and played from the top to the tip of the majestic peninsula of Baja California. And because of this, I've met some incredibly interesting people with equally interesting stories. And today on the Baja Sessions, we're going to chat with one of them. Travis Daines, I'm super stoked to have you on the Baja Sessions today. This is a couple days after Thanksgiving. I hope your tummy is nice and full like mine is. Travis and I have known each other for about a year, more or less, and our paths have crossed a few times. And Travis is a very intriguing individual to me. Excuse me. I'm actually excited because I'm feeling like we're going to get to peel some layers back with you that I don't know much about you. So I'm excited to get to know you a little better. And I'll say that this podcast has been a fun. If nothing else, which it is much more, but I've really been able to expand friendships and relationships with people that were basically in some cases just not much more than an acquaintance. So, right. Travis, welcome to the Baja Sessions, man. That was a long intro, and we'll dive into some of your background here in a second. But I just want to say welcome and thank you for taking the time to come on with me.
Hey, it's good to be here. I appreciate this invite, and it's the first podcast I've ever done. So hopefully I can, give you, the insight that you're looking for, I guess.
Okay. Well, you say this is the first podcast you've ever done. This, just ladies and gentlemen, so you know, this is coming from somebody who has an audience on Facebook that, correct me if I'm wrong, man, but it's like 1.2 million.
Correct.
Okay, so this may be your first podcast, but it's not your first time in front of a few people. It's
No.
And believe me, I don't have 1.5 million people watching the podcast. So
well, and we combined between Instagram and Facebook, we're just a shade under 1.5 million, and it's been a sharp learning curve for me to get in front of the camera, and I do that quite a bit, I guess. But as far as just talking into a mic and doing it this way, this is a different animal for me. And I so far I like the format. I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I'm anxious to see how this goes.
Right on. So the connection here, as usual on the Baja Sessions, listeners, is Travis and I are I guess connected through a shared love of all things off-road. Your path or your trajectory is a little bit different than mine has been, but they've crossed paths here about a week and a half ago, and what I mean by that, Travis just participated in his first Baja 1000, and we're definitely going to get into that. But before we do, what I'd like to do, Travis, I mean, I met you at the SEMA show. I know that you have a social media presence. It's based around none other than the Jeep, or maybe you can refine that a little for me. But you've built an audience around the page or the channel JeepFreeks. Am I right there?
Correct.
And that's ultimately the connection. And I'm incredibly fascinated with all things internet marketing and communications and teaching and audience building and all of that. It's a side hobby, I guess you could say, for me, outside of the fact that I work in the world of motorsports. So I really do want to talk to you about that. But tell me about your fascination with Jeeps and how JeepFreeks was spawned.
The fascination. I mean, we essentially as a family grew up in a Jeep. My dad had a 47 Willys CJ2. And it was our lives. I mean, my whole childhood was spent in and around that Jeep. My mom would take us, on picnics down to the river, and she would drive us. If you're familiar with Utah, she would drive us up one of the canyons to a swimming pool area, little recreation area, and in a flat fender hauling as many kids as she could cram into that thing. Nobody's wearing a seat belt. Nobody. I mean, this thing didn't even have seat belts. It didn't have a roll bar, and she would haul 10 kids up there, piled all over this Jeep, and we go camping, we go hunting. This Jeep was the center of our recreation. So that's essentially the foundation of what JeepFreeks was founded on.
Okay, so that's what it was founded on, the foundation, and I do want to talk about the process, but just to give the listeners more of a little bit of meat right now, can you tell us in a nutshell what is JeepFreeks today? So it started as this ultimate component of your DNA. What is JeepFreeks today?
JeepFreeks is one of the few places that you can find online that has 100% positive interaction with its audience. And we celebrate the grassroots efforts, not necessarily like a marketing push from a company, but we celebrate everybody, especially someone who's limited on resources and they're building their Jeep or just driving their Jeep out of sheer passion. We include, every element of the Jeep world. It's so many people just focus on where the money is. We don't. We focus on, what's really behind your passion and your freakiness of the Jeep world.
Your freakiness.
You're
going to need, well, okay, so hold on. I can put that into perspective because I've met you in person and I can put a visual to it. And when you say freakiness and listeners, I'm going to have to, I'm going to try to draw the picture for you. And I'm short, so I can call you short. I think you're probably taller than me though, aren't you, Travis?
I'm probably at least an inch taller than you.
Well, that's not saying much. So Travis,
when you're challenged, when you're vertically challenged like we are, that a half inch is like, you got to count that.
Exactly. So Travis is a vertically challenged, robust individual that you wouldn't miss walking down the street.
I'm full figured.
I'm full figured with a radical beard. And,
I used to be fatter though. I'll just say that I used to be fatter.
and I didn't call you fat. I said robust. And my point is that to hear you say freaky, hear you say the word freaky, I can put that into context. I've seen some of your YouTube videos. I've watched you functioning in your garage. I'm assuming that's your garage, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And I can also vouch for the fact that it's not like Hollywood smoke and mirrors with you. I've met you in person. I've heard your stories on the surface, and like I said, I want to get deeper. And I've also watched some of your videos, and to say you celebrate everybody, I mean that's a fair statement, especially and somewhat difficult in today's world. But the one thing that I've truly connected with you on is just the straightforward authenticity and transparency of who you are.
Yeah.
And so I think that's ultimately, I got to believe that's a large part of why you have the audience on social media that you do.
Oh, absolutely. And so much of it is, I'm not smart enough to package it up any other way than just to be honest about who I am. I'm a Jeep guy. I'm a dirty construction worker that, figured out a long time ago that this is what I want to do and this is how I want to affect the world. And I've gone at it, with every fiber I have. And
today it's a Facebook page, but it's a community. Do you do stuff? How do you interact with the community, the JeepFreeks community?
We try to make it out to a lot of events, and BF Goodrich has been very good to take us to a lot of different places that I would have never been on my list. We've been to Bantam a couple times, different things with races and King of the Hammers, and I try to meet as many people as I can. We're very active in the messaging. We receive 20 to 30 technical questions a day through messaging that we try to help people out. If I know a fair amount about Jeeps, but I have resources that I call upon. One of them's one of my good friends, Rick Prater. He's like, we call him the Jeep Whisperer because the kid knows everything about Jeeps, and he's my number one resource just to help the community out. We try to give them the best information and not sell them on something. We don't have an agenda in that way.
It's interesting to think that I was talking with some family members over the weekend about how the creators of things, of technologies. Didn't Al Gore create the internet? let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So I just, it's cool to hear stories of how of the use of technology that. I mean, let's face it. You're fighting against bastardizing it through commercialization, and what I mean by that is one of the top things that you're saying here is that 20 to 30 technical questions a day. My first thought was, man, you're more of a guru than I thought you were from a technical standpoint or mechanically, and you may very well be, but you also then immediately said, hey, and I got this network of people. So I envision JeepFreeks as maybe somewhat of a hub for communication. Like you facilitate communication between people that need to know something and people that know something. Is that a fair statement? Absolutely.
It's so much an element of the forums have become just a black hole of hate and discontent that people are looking to find answers other ways than try to dig through a thread and figure that out. So social media gives you the opportunity to reach out to anyone instantly. And, I think the culture we've built it's a very accepting, it's a very neutral area. You can ask me a question about a Cherokee or a YJ or some of the other models that don't get the love that the old CJs do and the new Jeeps get, because we see them all equal. If that's part of the rules of engagement on JeepFreeks. You have to be respectful and you have to be positive. And if you break either one of those rules, you get blocked. And we have blocked over 60,000 people to date.
Wow.
Because I don't tolerate the typical internet interaction in my house. This is my house. These are my rules, and people appreciate it.
So I got to ask you from a technical standpoint: Is JeepFreeks present? I mean, does it exist outside of Facebook? Do you have a website or something that it exists in, or is it housed on Facebook?
There is a website, but it's just basically a landing page to direct you to some of our other social medias. We have a very small YouTube that gets longer content. Instagram, we have 240,000 followers on Instagram, and each platform gets different content because you interact differently. You would from Facebook to Instagram.
Understood. And I could geek out on some of this stuff with you, Travis, but I don't want to force our listeners to go that route. Let's suffice it to say. So, I guess what I'm getting at here is that the Jeep, the iconic vehicle, has been a part of who you are almost since childhood.
Ryan, I don't know a day of life without a Jeep.
Fair enough.
My whole life I've had a Jeep in it. So
fair enough. So we understand the deep rooted connection, and you have semi-turned it into a business or a job or more than a hobby.
Correct.
And that's what has opened the doors for you to ultimately, for you and I to end up meeting. Tell me about that process. I mean, you've gone from fully being engaged in JeepFreeks as a business and no other outside form of revenue,